Hello my friends, welcome back. Today we will be making our next mask of the series, which I believe will be the Mask of Truth, and that is a suggestion by my friend Neon, so say thank you to them. I'm excited. I think I'm just going to stick with this foam clay method for this one, but I am going to basically make the whole base foam foil, then foam clay, and then stick the cutout mask on the inside, and then paint it after that. So bear with me, we're gonna see how this works out.
Basically, as soon as I started making the mask, the plans changed. I initially wanted to make the foil foam clay base separate and then glue the mask on the inside for it to take shape, but I realized that wasn't going to work. Main reason being, once I started the foam clay, I needed it to dry into the curve of the mask, and without that already being attached from the start, that wasn't going to happen. I grabbed the foil, I started to determine just how big I wanted the mask and created 3 triangles for the top, sort of in like a crown formation. I made sure they were placed somewhat symmetrical and had the piece of foil that covered the rest of the mask base quite big and already sort of in shape. It also kind of reminded me of a shield. At this point, I was starting to figure out how I needed to glue the triangles down to the mask. I decided I needed to glue them together first and then glue them onto the base. I apologize for my camera going blurry in some parts too. Then I realized I needed to trim down both the sides and the top of the mask. The cardboard base, that is. I did all that before attaching the large piece of foil and grabbing more foil to then cover the sides and make sure that the triangles and the large piece weren't shaped funny. The next thing I realized, if I needed to put foam clay on this, it needed to be a little bit more stable. I started to grab random bits of foil and shove them under the big base of the mask, just so it protruded out just a little bit more and had more strength behind it when I put the foam clay on. This is what it sort of looked like, with the little bits just shoved behind everything. Already, the hot glue was a bit of an issue.
The goal is to now, once again, cover the whole thing in foam clay.
As soon as I started covering it in foam clay, the weight of the foam clay started to pull the hot glue off, so I did go in and touch it up a few times with the hot glue gun, just to make sure that it was definitely sticking to the mask base. It took a little bit of time, and yes, I had quite a bit of foam clay, thankfully. I also kept a bowl of water near me so I could just constantly keep smoothing it down, and it was starting to slowly come together. Continued to cover the rest of it. I realized with the size and the awkward shape of the mask, it would help if I had this foam wig head stand thing that I got from my friend Britt to just have the mask on to hold and be stable while I worked on it. The only issue with this was, if I wanted to put my fingers in the eye holes of the mask to kind of push against the foam clay as I put it down on the base, I would have to keep taking it on and off the wig head. Also, the head kept moving and was a little bit unbalanced, so I ended up just getting some sewing pins and sticking those into the base of the mask so it would stay in one spot on the wig head. It took a little while, and thankfully while I was working downstairs, it was a lot cooler than when I was working on the Keaton mask upstairs, so everything wasn't immediately drying on me, which was a bit of a godsend. The foam clay itself came out quite wrinkly when I was done with it, so I did have to go over it a few times with some more water and just slowly rub against it to try and smooth it out. This is what it looked like the next day when it was dry, and I had sketched the pattern onto it because I was trying to figure out whether I just wanted to paint the pattern or use more foam clay to make it stick out. I decided to go to the foam clay idea. In the last clip, I also showed that I covered up the back of the mask between the cardboard base and the foam and foil with more foam clay just so it was all sealed and all in one piece. Now, this was the tedious part of putting the details of foam clay onto the base of the mask. I kind of just kept rolling them out into long sausage-like bits of foam and then placing on top of where I sketched. I was also naughty and did this while I was work from home, so you will catch me looking at the computer sometimes. Another little hack that I found, I grabbed a pencil with a rubber attached to the other end of it, or eraser for the non-Aussies, and used that rubber end of it and some water to smooth down and seal around the extra foam clay details. This actually helped immensely. Yes, it was a little bit tedious, but the foam clay stuck really well to the mask. The edges were sealed, and it also helped with smoothing down in the process. So I was really happy with how this was sort of turning out. It did take a very long time, and I was back up in the office, so things were drying quickly again, but luckily it was just small pieces that I sort of only had to work once or twice before moving on to the next one, rather than the whole base of the mask. I think the hardest part was that there were lots of little pieces and I was eyeballing the whole thing. If you guys have been keeping up with my past projects, I don't usually plan a lot. Like, I'll get an idea in my head, I might jot down some ideas in a notebook, and then I basically full send while the motivation is fresh. So a lot of my videos and creative process is just trusting the process. And hey, it's worked this far. The only thing I was worried about was it being symmetrical. Very soon, all the details were placed onto the base of the mask. I was pretty happy with it, though the bottom did need some smoothing down. I basically finished off doing that, didn't record it though, but once it was a little bit dry a couple hours later, I tried it on to see if it was wearable, and it was. The next day, everything was dry, though I realized one crucial mistake, that the Mask of Truth has a hole where the mouth is. Some other creative interpretations also have a hole behind where the eye is so people can look through, or just to kind of give it a hollow look, and I did briefly consider doing that to my mask as well. However, cutting out the mouth was tedious enough, and I looked at references from the game, and most of the time only the mouth was cut out, so I just stuck with that. I tried my best to clean it up as much as possible while I was cutting it out, but just to make sure it was a little bit cleaner, I added some more foam clay just around where I cut to cover up any cardboard or foil or foam clay bits that would be poking out. The next step was to paint the mask, and I didn't have to worry about this foam clay drying too quickly because I was just painting the face of it. I wasn't going to worry about the back side of it. Out of the whole mask process, I definitely think painting is the most grueling part of it. I tend to do at least 3 coats of paint every little detail. I started off with a very, very light grey for the base of the mask, and in person it looked so dark, but on camera it actually looked okay. This is what it looked like after the first coat. Also, shout out to our friend Mary, whose stream I was watching in the background while I worked on this stuff. And again, because of the heat, I was very soon able to work on the second coat of paint. Because it did look a little bit darker, I added some more white paint in between just to lighten it up a little bit. But the more coverage it had, the more it started to look a little bit better. I was also trusting the process because the details around the eye with the red and the yellow would also make the grey look a lot lighter. And this is the second coat of paint done. You can see me kind of questioning whether I like it or not. I decided I had a more positive opinion on it. Then it was soon time for the third coat of paint. Again, I was just doing the grey of the base because it was all that I could have time to do at this point in time. I was also working from home, so I did need to actually work in between the coats of paint too, but it was all coming together rather nicely. This is what the third and final coat of paint looked like with the light, the direct sunlight hitting it, and then I moved on to painting the eye. My phone was kind of overheating, so I didn't actually record myself painting the eye, but I did like the gradient that I ended up doing. I then had to cover absolutely everything else in red paint. And guys, this was so hard and actually so stressful. I don't know if you can see my face slowly losing positivity as I go. I was just trying to focus on the red paint and try not to accidentally spill any onto the grey base. Because the foam clay was sealed so well with the pencil rubber, I literally had to get the paintbrush right down to the edges of the details to try and get full coverage of the red paint. This part took me so long in between a stressful day of work and also accidentally spilling the mask in my paint palette, which I then quickly wiped off with some wipes. I was stressed. There was a point in this moment where I almost gave up on this mask. I had a few moments where I really just wanted to break it. I knew I would regret it in the long run, so I just kind of kept going, finished up work for the day, and then went downstairs in absolute silence where it was a little bit cooler and continued to paint the red. I didn't record all of it because I was just trying to do it peacefully, but this is what it looked like. Then when that was dry, I grabbed some pencil, just graphite, and smudged some details around the base of the mask to make it look a little bit older, a little bit dirtier. And this is it. This is what it looked like. Please let me know if you like how it turned out. Feel free to subscribe if you want to follow the project, and let me know in the comments what you would like to see next. Thanks again, and bye bye!